Hi, everybody. My name is Miles Ward, and this is Cloud and Clear. I am your host. I also happen to be CTO at SADA, and I am incredibly excited to have my friend Lakshmi on from Google. She also happens to have an incredibly complicated and impressive job, but really we're just buddies. And so I'm excited about connecting up today and talking through what's happening in networking in cloud and how we're all working together to make our customers super successful. Lakshmi, can you give a bit of an introduction for folks?
Hi, yeah, I'm Lakshmi Sharma. Thank you so much, Miles. And as Miles mentioned, that while we are friends, we also do very interesting job for a lot of people in the world. So I represent in that role. I'm Director of Product Management for Networking for Google Cloud. And I'm here at Google for close to 3 years. And we release and build a lot of secure and reliable and high-performant products for Google Cloud.
I was in, we did a thing as a SADA where we watched all of the presentations from all different cloud providers. There's reInvent, the Azure people do their stuff. Google has a thing called Next, that's spectacular. In the next opening main keynote, Brad Calder comes out and starts describing Google. And he's got his superlatives. And I've always heard this stuff with, some kind of caveat. Google has a pretty damn big network, or Google has a very large sort of infrastructure as system, or it has a network that's 5 times the size of this other network you've heard of called the internet. But finally, Brad said the magic phrase, and I could hear in the back, like I know Lakshmi's doing backflips and jumping jacks and stuff. Brad just says Google has the biggest network in the world. What moment what's that like? How was sort of hearing that come through? Was that a debate inside to be able to just put your stamp on it and say, no, we have the big one?
Yes. And, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with it, right? So if you're just the bigger, but if you're not reliable and if you're not up as your customers expect you to be, and if you are going through all these peaks and shoppings and holidays, and if everything just doesn't go without, it just goes smooth, right? If all of that doesn't happen, then that big network doesn't really help, right? But it does give goosebumps, as you said, like, wow, we have this massive opportunity and we have this massive scale. We can reach entire world in single hop, right? That's the kind of promise. That's how networking people think about. Hey, I have a phone and I want to connect through a phone or through a laptop while I'm working from home to a cloud because my service is running, or I'm going through cloud to a service. Everything should be able to be connected in one hop, which means less latency. And that's the kind of magic that anywhere in the world, you can connect to Google Cloud with such an ease, at so fast and such a low latency. That is magical.
I remember I had a good friend who figured out that if he screamed in just the right way into his phone, he could get a modem on the other side to pick up, and it would act and start sending him byte noises and things like this. And we would try to get to print out what it is that his voice sounded like yelling at the modem. And to go from there, like, maybe I can get a 19.2 kbps modem as a big upgrade for my 9600 baud one, to doing the work to connect Twitter at 800 gigabits a second, right? I mean, the delta there is really, really massive. Yeah. And in the same way, like I'm the son of a landscaper. When, like, the first computer job I did when I was like 7, like going out and help fix a game machine. Like, talk to me about your path from how you get into a place where you're bossing around one of the largest networks. The largest network in the world.
Yes. So I was born and brought up in India, and I was in a family where no girl ever went to college, and my dad was a peon, and peon is not a fancy job. And while I'm very proud of, my dad is very proud of what he did, what he wanted us to do, and what he believed was that education is what could uplift us as a team of our family, and then it may uplift even our society and our neighborhood and all of that. So that was his goal. He wanted us to be educated, and then and then and coming from there, with a lot of help. So I had nobody who was my mentor, or like, when I was going through school, I just picked up what people will tell me, or my dad will tell my dad, and kept kind of following that path, landed up in US. And to be honest, like not having anybody in your circle, in your, neighborhood, and anybody who ever even knows what a job of a manager looks like, of an engineer looks like, because we did not have people like that in our neighborhood, and nobody in my family. So coming all the way, and just I found a lot of people like Miles, like you, and then there are many other people who I met, like there are some names like Dave Ward and then Stefan. So many people who I met who really were my sponsors, who saw like my passion, who saw my hard work, and who saw my knowledge, and placed me into the right places, positioned me into the right places where my skills could be utilized to the best of that role. Really kind of got me success all the way to here. And then I'm fortunate that I landed up in this opportunity 3 years ago when Brad and team, when they were looking for somebody to run networking product management, they were looking for somebody who has done networking, engineering, software, product, a lot of things. And I was thinking like, hey, I've done this for many years. And why should I do that again? Right. The reason I wanted to do that was because, as you said, this is massive opportunity. We were like a small cloud, that, right? We were very small. We were transitioning from consumer to public cloud. And that was the beauty of it, being there in the middle of everything, in that, onset of the growth that nobody could have imagined. And I'm so, so happy that I made that decision where I'm influencing and I'm impacting every person's life on the globe, in the globe, and also like working with so many smart people. It's just magical.
Yeah, I just had a run-in with a new product manager. I think she's a transfer over, Emily Rapp. You've got to meet her. She's in charge of the BigQuery Omni project, which is, I'm sure, like a networking nightmare to be able to plumb a Google code base across this handy dandy thing called Interconnect over into Amazon to be executed. And she was that same kind of experience that I had early with you. This like feels like breathing in Google, right? There's like, yes, fresh, wholesome Google, right? Where you're hardworking and feisty and trying to find the best solution for customers. So I thought that, it would be in the way that I have seen customers take benefit from all of this structure. So much of what I think, not just like, a couple people, but billions of people depend on, it can be routed back to like individual, intensely feisty people trying to get great stuff done. Right. I mean, like how let's talk about product, right? Like networking today at Google is, I think is on a tear from a product release standpoint. Can you talk through kind of some of the building blocks that have been launched and maybe any of the heroes or heroines who have been pushing that stuff forward?
Yeah, there are many I can talk about, and I'll start with since I talked about performance and security and reach, this is how we kind of look at our end goal, is that we can deliver to a user experience where customers don't see all these plumbing, right? Because people, when come to cloud, they come for workloads, they come for applications. They don't want to, when customers come to us, they don't want to, or any cloud, they don't want to even know there is networking. So networking should be seamless to them. Security should be seamless to them. So in that kind of context, what they want is that wherever I am, I should get a seamless experience. I should get the fastest, the lowest latency, right? And because I'm bringing all these databases and then large amount of workloads, hey, there is this large transaction rate that I have, right? Let's say gaming customers, let's say like financial customers, anybody who need big pipe, but at the same time also like larger transaction. For customers like that, we have added and we have built, and they want security, which is like private connectivity to their on-prem or wherever they are. So private connectivity at very high scale, high rate of packets. And if you can deliver to that at the lowest latency, that is what we offer through our interconnect capability. So we have direct interconnect, right? Capability where you can connect privately any GCP service or any customer service running in GCP through that private connectivity to on-prem. So what we have recently announced, or what we have built towards and will be GA in early next year, is that we have reduced the number of hops that used to be there from GCP to edge. So GCPs to GCP edge, GCP region to GCP's edge, you can reach in less than 1 millisecond. And what does it get you, right? What does it get you? What it gets you is that now you can, if you are financial, if you are healthcare, and you were directly connecting to us, you can guarantee to your application that I can deliver to this latency from GCP to edge. And talking about another launch that we have done, which is bare metal, right? If you have a bare metal service and you want to do any lift and shift to GCP, let's say Oracle, right? Oracle on bare metal, then you can bring it to our regional extension, which is not GCP's data center, but it is right next to GCP's data center. And that Oracle on bare metal would look like any other GCP service, because you can attach it, your infrastructure, your bare metal, your service, and connect it to rest of the GCP within 1 millisecond latency delta. So I'm talking about these numbers. I'm talking about this innovation, so that this is what we are doing to make it easy for our customers through networking. But as if you are within GCP, but you bring your infrastructure, you bring your bare metal, bring your services, and operate it as if it was on-prem. So making it easier, the hybrid, making it faster and making it more GCP-like, user experience.
Yeah, I'm, as you know, I have been super, super bullish about, Google's participation in the hybrid ecosystem. And I think a lot of the work that you and others are doing are helping set the multi-cloud standard across all the different providers. Nobody is as far along as Google is, particularly on the connectivity and connectivity performance side. So these newer announcements, I think, are doing a lot, not only to meet customers where they are and make it so that they can be successful, but I'm surprised that there isn't more of like same as there was this, like, right when I started at GCP, there was this incredible fight about how much a VM cost per hour, right? And then it was like, no, we're going to do it per minute. And they're like, no, we'll do it per second. And like, we got into this whole fight about that. And they would benchmark them off against each other like crazy. These, for many, many applications, the network issues are bigger drivers of overall system performance and total cost. So I think there's a lot where, what maybe doesn't get the biggest headline in terms of a product launch or something like that. You don't get the full musculature of Google's marketing and networking arm behind you, but they make a really big impact for customers. So thank you for the hard work.
Yeah. I think you just mentioned, say compute and price and performance and all of that, right? So we understand that, like, if it was, say, 3 years ago, right, we still had to build a lot of products and we wanted to be like enterprise ready. But a big piece of enterprise readiness for large set customers is that when they get their bill, what is the mix like, right? What is a lot of customers who come, as I mentioned, if you don't want to see networking, then you would like to see less of networking in your bill as well, right?
Sure.
And so we are doing a lot of things like, internally also to make it easier for customers when it comes to, hey, I'm going out of GCS, I'm going out of BigQuery, and I'm coming to GCS from a public IP, or I'm going between two regions, between two interzones. There are a lot of questions that customers come up with, right? So we are making it easy for customers to also consume these capabilities, right? So we have a product where customers come in and say, okay, I understand that I would need all these combinations of bandwidth and egresses and whatnot, but can you put that together in a fixed TCO model for me, right? So we have a product which is already in, let's say public preview version, where we can even offer that. So we are not just thinking about like, hey, Google is so great and in technology and all the capabilities that we build, and we are so good in our networking and network security, but we understand very well that customers also want to have a good operating model, good commercial and business model. So we are building products to also make it easy for them to consume our services.
I think it's critical that, when we're talking with customers, easy has all of these different definitions, right? Like easy for software developers, most of my customers kind of don't care. They pay software developers. They're happy to crack the whip on them and have them get stuff done. They want easy for them to talk about with their finance team.
Exactly.
It's a very different definition of easy.
Okay.
And I've definitely seen that as each of the different products, starting with some of the innovations in GCE, like, being able to do preemptible VMs as a safer version of Amazon Spot, being able to use sustained usage discount, like the high volume services will be forced by high volume customers to get into financial systems that are compatible with corporate finance, and watching network and database and the other sort of building blocks follow suit is, I hope more of the market recognizes those as signals of scale. Like, you don't go build super exotic pricing models because you're selling $35 in networking. You do it because you're selling $35 billion in networking, right? So that's a cool, insider way of kind of observing, like, oh, they've gotten huge. They're doing cookie pricing models. Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's a good way to kind of look at it. And then that's a message I think a lot of people must have also seen from our earnings last quarter. And then everybody, Thomas Kurian and rest of the team have already shared that information. So I think, it is indicating that we are trusted and people rely on us, and customers can rely on us for all their mission critical workloads and applications. Yeah.
I mean, I remember how much pressure Amazon was under to break out the AWS number. And I didn't know whether like Google would do that faster or slower. I came over to Google, I started working with them, and like, the analysts started in on kind of day one. And I was like, really? Like, it's a little early, guys. Like, give us a minute. So, super proud of the business being able to cover that milestone. What do you think are, and it can be about product, but think more broadly. What are the next like milestones? Even not even just for GCP, you can be broader, in public cloud or in technology. Where, I think there's a lot of our customers that the risk they try to hedge against most is an unanticipated future, and so you're so much further out ahead than most of them, right? Like they're still fighting with terabytes, and you're over here hanging out in exabyte land. Like, what kinds of things should they be paying attention to? What seems salient?
Yeah. So one convergence, as a lot of us might have seen, have already seen, right? There is a convergence happening on one end. There is a convergence happening where, say, traditional, ASIC companies, right, or say processor companies. They're either processor companies going and buying a network interface company, or a network interface company going and buying a processor company. So there's a lot of convergence happening in that world, right? And so that drives one set of patterns, which is like, hey, things like if we go a little technical, like, which is like, hey, things like GPUs and TPUs, and then offloads. And so very heavy data processing, bringing that to the network edge, right? Which means that you're bringing encryption to the edge. Like, and when I'm saying edge, I really mean closest to the application. Yeah. So that's one trend we are seeing, right? And which we can all see based on the acquisitions and everything that is happening around the globe, right? And so if you bring encryption to the closest to the application, you are driving like GPUs at the rate, like, of like you mentioned 800 gig at the network. But if you end up doing that right at your network interface card, imagine what we can do, the possibilities, right? So you're talking about high performance computing, like large amount of drones, autonomous cars, all of that may be kind of compacted to a very small size, right? So that is a trend we are seeing, and that will enable or converge to two industries, right? So let's take, because I mentioned HPC, high performance computing, which has been seen traditionally as a legacy and industry. Hey, oil and gas, scientific computing, right? Things like that. But because of the this new convergence is happening because of cloud, because cloud enable that scale, massive scale, we can take a transport and travel industry from a traditional legacy HPC on-prem work to a very scalable, flexible, globally distributed Google-like network of any instance type, being able to deliver now something like the drug discovery for COVID, right? Because you can do so much of processing and so much of data processing at the same time. So that's kind of one trend. And legacy taking a new way of kind of looking at the applications, but convergence of compute, networking, and at the scale and this rate that we couldn't imagine before, but that is, combined with the offloads work and we have our partnership with NVIDIA and all. So all of that convergence happening. That's kind of one. Now we up level, right? So up-leveling is that how customers are consuming services at the top, which is word like, we have heard these terms like SASE, and then like, some network as a service, where you can go and just in one place, you can get firewall, you can get NAT, you can get an IPv6 address, everything. And the customer doesn't have to worry about what my network connectivity type is, where in the world I'm coming from, whether I'm coming from an edge, which let's say SD-WAN, whether I'm coming from a Chrome, from a phone. So how do we make it easy for any network service to be consumed and deliver to that from an experience out of my own consumption, which is a lot of AI/ML. So a lot of processing, a lot of AI/ML, and then making it network as a service from anywhere in the world. So I think that is actually a trend for all cloud providers.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's very good that the providers all work in the same kind of swim lanes, competing with each other. That competition has only positive benefits for customers. And I think that there's this great quote from Adrian Cockcroft when in the very terrifying meeting, when the Amazon folks announced to him that they were going to build Prime Video, he was like, "Oh, good, you'll finally build the stuff I need," right? Like more competition for these things that customers need, I hope, will drive the chip manufacturers and the hardware providers and all the rest of it to give you the raw materials you need to build an incredible network. But you said the magic word. My favorite word around all this stuff is easy. And one of the things that I keep looking for that I haven't seen a decent example of yet, I'm wondering if you've seen anything in this vein, where it's so obvious to such a huge percentage of developers that encapsulating the configuration of their software in a standardized format, we ended up landing on this thing called a container, and Docker is, set the standard for what that looks like. And now the OCI model has helped people use containers all over the place. The unlock of interoperability and consistency is so massive from a value standpoint that everybody is moving in that direction. But I have not yet seen a container for my network config. Like I want to download the container for network HIPAA compliance. I want to download the container for network PCI compliance and run that container in my cloud, which would set all the network constraints in such a way as it makes it so that I can't break those rules. Those are the kinds of controls I think enterprises are looking for.
I love that. Yes. And you actually just went into a product, and I'll use the product name, which we have launched, which is in the similar direction. And I think we're ahead of some competition and some folks in that direction. So, and also comes from some of the work that networking team here in GCP has done. So there is a term in networking, it's called intent-based network, right? Intent-based, configuration intent-based network. What that means is that you take, you basically learn what is the intent of the user, like who's configuring firewall routes and then IPsec or that anything that you need in a network. And when I say network, I mean that full topology. If it is a cloud, you go from org to folder to project to VPC, right? The full topology. And then you learn that full configuration of the customer and all the way to on-prem, right? Which is because we're talking about hybrid. So how magical would it be if I could just learn entire configuration and over time, hey, Google, you could, within my configuration for my data, you could also keep recommending to me that, hey, this is the configuration maybe you intended and you have deviated, and then give me the control so that I can go and play button, and then it either accepts certain lines and then give me for NAT, give me for IPsec VPN, give me all these recommendations, and then give me a view so that I can, because, unless you don't trust something unless you see it. And plus for all these compliance things you talked about, you need to take a copy and put a certificate out there. So how cool it would be if you can give me a view on the topology and it just looks like as if I used to do that through all these network planning devices when I was either a telco, when I'm an enterprise, because I used to put all these paper in my operations center. Can you give me that similar paper look in a topology in cloud? I'm like, yes, we heard you. We started talking to all our customers long time ago, and they gave this as a requirement. So we have a product called Network Intelligence Center. That's basically the product is, it's called self-driving network. And it starts by giving you network performance monitoring diagnostic, but with a view that we can take you towards a self-driving model of cloud, right? And we recently also launched a product called Active Assist, right? which is overall self-driving cloud, and which is, let's say, intent-based for GCP, for all services like compute, identity, networking, all of that. And Network Intelligence Center, think of that as a self-driving network. But everything starts by, give me an intent of a configuration, static configuration, then tell me if I have the right flows, then tell me if I have the right data paths, all of it, load balancer, everything in there. So we do have a product.
See, I gotta get caught up now. I gotta stay up all weekend and write a bunch of weird shit to try and bust this thing, which will be super fun. There's, one other piece that's, that I think is in the vein of kind of the easy button, right? If we're gonna encapsulate all these things, I think declarative formats are critical. The whole industry is kind of swung in that way, and I think to the benefit of a huge number of operations people who don't have to go be the implementer of said declarations, which is great. There's, for our largest customers, a whole bunch of the building blocks that you described are the right materials. They need an API to be connected at the edge so that they can set up the routing devices and the other equipment on their end to build an interface over multiple, probably redundant, fairly expensive linkages. That the next layer down, right? I'm thinking retailers with thousands of locations and finance shops and healthcare, and yep, that's right. Every one of the verticals is an example like this, where there's a gazillion installations and their network is not this white hot, super dense thing. It is a distributed, massively, spread out all over the place. I remember when Amazon shipped the Snowball, the hardware appliance for storage, and I immediately was all over them. Like, I don't give a shit about sending 80 gigs of data into the public cloud. I want a Snowball that's just for networking. Right. Let me send an appliance that when I turn it on, it's connected. And there's no more like conversation or setup. I have to call the like weird neck-bearded giant networking guy who is invariably in that position in every one of these major businesses that controls access from their environment to cloud. We have to have a cloud key or some kind of way of unlocking the door. And VPNs are a part of that. And like, I know all the technology bits, but the experience for customers remains, I have to get the scary person on the phone. I risk violating all global corporate policy if I push this magic button, and I don't have the authority to do this stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how we get further. Anthos seemed like an ingredient to that. It has this channel called Connect, where it's like, okay, there's a pipe, but like, I want to run everything over the pipe, and I want you to manage it for me, and I don't have to handle all of it, right? Like, how do we get further on that?
Yeah, so Anthos is our hybrid, right? So Anthos is the hybrid platform. So everything that I'm talking about, I'm coming from, say, bottoms up, which is infrastructure layer, right? And Anthos is our platform layer. So yeah, and now kind of 3-step, right? So first addressing that, hey, there is an equivalent of, say, Snowball, where this is a special purpose. You take it on-prem and you save some data and boom, it goes to cloud. So we do have in the storage, my storage colleagues have built something called Transfer Appliance, and they do have that capability. Yes, you have to ship it back to cloud, and then that's how it works. But then since next step, which is, as you mentioned, like Anthos can take you through Anthos on-prem to on-prem, and then we bring some capabilities there, right? And we continue to expand. Just today, I think our Anthos bare metal went GA, and that would be our driver and vehicle for a lot of our hybrid deployments and legacy deployments as well, right? I know our customers, we used to hear a lot from various folks that, hey, GCP or Google only talks about transformation or GKE or
I said, I know Anthos bare metal is GA because I'm holding it. This is the 4th version of our little toasters. And you can squint and see this is like a prototype. We're not actually going to send these to anybody. But if you look in the back, there's a little violence that's been done to that. These are 3 of the Dell Ultra 7070. They're like computers to be bolted on the back of a monitor. But they're 8 cores and 64 gigs of RAM a piece and a bunch of NVMe. So like, here's my public cloud. This is small enough. Like I could, but there's no router in here, right? Like that's the part that it's missing. Like I know how to stick a router in. I've got a bunch of in the corner, but making it so that it does the bridging without me having to fight too much is I think a critical unlock for getting all of the little places just on the cloud, so that you don't have to fight it too much.
Right. I think that, so you said that, right? So we launched first bare metal, and then rest of the portfolio, making it easy. We already have a way to connect to this. That's how you're connecting it here too, right? So the step is that we introduce bare metal, then you make networking and the full stack of network and other services. When I say network, by definition, I mean firewall and NAT and IPsec and everything that we have, interconnect connectivity, CDN, load balancer, everything I mean. So then you have the network stack, make it easy as part of the Anthos kind of portfolio. And then you just make it easy for it to be that push button from cloud, because you want seamless anywhere. So, but another part of it, which I kind of touched upon a little bit before, is that we have a customer version of it, right? Anthos is GCP's version, but we already offer bare metal as part of our regional extension, right? Sure. And regional extension is, as I said, it's a mini data center right next to Google Cloud. So which is basically your on-prem right next to GCP in our location, right? So that's how we are kind of, bringing that version of cloud to customer or customer to cloud, and creating these opportunities where customers can, bring their either legacy application or transformation, all kinds of platforms and versions and views that we have.
I think if there's, I think it's easy from the outside, and looking at, there's a landing page for cloud.google.com and it has like a couple of services on it. And, okay, it looks like kind of like a product. Like it's not a product. Of course, it's hundreds of products. And in a lot of ways, it'd be easy for 100 products or 200 or 300 or whatever it's up to now, for them to be disjoint and disconnected and to have kind of a less than comprehensive view of what customers needs. That's one of the things that I think is, particularly impressive for GCP, but then like narrowly very impressive in networking, is that you've been very consistent about filling out all the columns and all of the rows, right? Like all of the things that we're going to be able to do, we're going to be able to do it in all of the places. And that's, invariably my company is the one that finds the customers in the one box that you didn't really decide to fill in, right? Like, and Google makes it great because you tend to fill in all the boxes. So thank you for the hard work on that. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah.
So we went fast and we talked about a bunch of nerdy stuff and you did great. That we got there, right? From me working with my dad and you working with yours, and how far, everybody goes in technology. I think that's one of the things that's best about this industry, is just how much progress you can make from, the number of people that you have influence over, the amount of, productive value you can generate. Like what, as you're, both of us are kind of going into a different phase of our careers. I'm doing a lot more mentoring than I am like looking for mentors, although happy to include you in the latter list. What are you trying to do with the new people that come into Google? How are you connecting in to help them, take a better path? I know some of the stuff we're doing, but I'm interested in the ways that you're thinking about making an impact there.
I think so. I'll talk about Google, and then through Google, what else I have achieved. Google gives a lot of opportunities for all kinds of things. So, so being a cloud provider, which is global and billions of customers, so very important is that your perspectives have to be diverse, right? And I call DE&I, which is I'm a core member of a D&I core infra, core infra is our team, like an infrastructure team of that steering committee member. And I do a lot of these things, but to me, everything goes from education, right? When you educate somebody, you get educated back, right? Education is always a two-way thing. So I do help with a lot of mentoring, a lot of sponsorship, and then all of that. But specifically, the things that I've been able to achieve is that last year, for example, and as it connects to education. So last year, we were in some part of the world, we were working with the customers, we were extending through a customer and a partnership. And then one of my team member who happens to be from India, he said, Lakshmi, because you're so passionate about education, the customer who happens to be king of that country and his wife says, hey, can we partner with you guys and can you educate these 50 women and this women leader that you have? Can she come and then educate those people on cloud technologies? These are graduates. And then I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And then I had other friends like from Cisco and Nokia. I reached out to them and then my colleague reached out and said, hey, we want to educate these 100 people. And then it became from 50 to it became 100. So we basically ended up educating 100 people in that country. And it was so impressive, like how much support we got. And then through these connections, like, as you and I are talking, as few other friends I had from other industries, right? There was CTO of like, Nokia and then other team and Cisco. So we all came together, and then the impact that it had is that now I'm doing similar thing in Ethiopia. So every night getting on a 1 a.m. call and teaching people. And so I think that's kind of, and then you learn from them because at the end of the day, like, Google is helping me run these GVCs and having these meetings. So you're always learning, there is a customer out there, right? You're always learning that what an end user wants. And if you can learn from so many diverse perspectives and, keep giving because you receive something from somebody, I think at the end of the day, it helps people. They trust Google, right? They trust us kind of working with them and we learn so much about them. So I think it's been an amazing journey with Google, not just working and building products, but kind of going beyond and connecting with people that I couldn't have imagined doing similar things. I was always kind of into this, as you said, because somebody at some point sponsored me, mentored me, and I want to continue to give back. I do that. And then there's some interesting things I do because I am Indian. So what I do, I sign up to Asian network. I sign up for, say, Google's kind of, say, American Indian network or say, all kinds of network where I sign up and then somebody who recently I'm mentoring said that, oh, you don't look Black, but you're the only person who is a director in this specific group. So would you still be able to mentor me? I'm like, absolutely. And then I happen to work with this person too, right, in past. So it's like, then I learn about that community, right? So this is how my way of kind of keeping the diverse perspective, kind of reaching out to people, because if you don't spend time with people like who are not like you don't learn about them.
That's right. I think it's one of the, I don't think we've really internalized as a culture the tragedy of this virus from a perspective of how little, a bunch of these smart people aren't flying around mixing, right? Like I do a lot of GVCs, but I don't do a lot of GVCs with people I've never met. Yes. Right. And so you end up in this, like, our social circle has crystallized in the last 9 months. And it now has this very crunchy outer shell. It's like a firewall that has landed as a result of this thing. And I hope that all of us, it's one of the things I'm trying to think about for 2021 is like, assuming this all works the way that it's supposed to, and the vaccines are great and everything's like, how do we pour gasoline on getting that, introduced to new people, introduced to new, how do you help out new folks, keeping that going smooth. We started a thing kind of before COVID hit at SADA called SADA U. I talked to you a little bit about what we're doing there. We're on to our second class now. We just went through the budget thing. We got approved now to do a whole set of classes for next year. So we're super excited about that. That's been one way, I've been trying to do it, is like, see if I can get a business to do some of this legwork for me and make sure we've hired, a hyper intelligent professor who's doing a better job of teaching than I would do. And I just sort of come in and wax philosophical occasionally, which is probably better for them. They get to it like an actual positive outcome. But one of the places, I'm trying to figure out how to do better is to think through, the spots where the networking, the connections between our customers, it's one, like Google has this network of customers that, that use the platform, that depend on it. And like, they've started to use some stuff. They did this, there's like a Cloud Connect thing. There's like a social media thing they've tried to pull together, and a couple of other different approaches. It's just sort of, it fits and starts. I'm really excited to see like a community of smart, creative, hardworking, and probably best way to motivate them is to have, altruistic causes that we can all sort of contribute to together. Like, invariably the best stories that came from Google were the places where some hot engineer worked hard on some problem nobody thought was all that interesting and way out in the middle of nowhere someplace, and they solved really, really critical stuff. I don't think there's any Google employee that doesn't cry when you watch the potato video when you come in, right? You're like, oh, the potato video, oh, it just gets me right there. Oh, so we're as a little company sitting outside, we're trying to figure out like, what are we going to end up doing that is going to feel like the potato video?
Yeah,
that's kind of that, and one hope is that that can come not just from one of our engineers staying up late and building a thing, but in facilitating the connections between customers and partners.
Yeah, I think that would be so like we discussed like offline, it would be on behalf of like my team and Google networking or Google Cloud actually. I would love to kind of I would love to bring in more people like me, and then we would be happy to partner, as you said, like extending it to our customers, because we are anyway working with them. Could be another way of connecting at human to human, right? Outside, like, just kind of, selling and building our products, human empathy. Yeah, that would be awesome. Right.
Yeah. I've told this to more than one customer, like, you don't need me here as a salesperson. This product is great. You should use it. Why don't we, what do you need? How do I help? Let's make a friendship and figure out where that goes. Like, it's a much better way to spend your workday.
Because the kind of bonds that you have built, right? I think that's your personality. This is because you're just talking. So I'm saying that just reaching out, like, I think reaching out to me and then say, hey, Lakshmi, let's just do this. And was also one of the ways, like, hey, we are partners and then we know each other. How do we talk about products? And at the same time, how could we educate? I think every opportunity we get like this, like, you have experience, I have experience in life. And then, through your connections will see it. My connection was, I see all, especially during COVID, I've seen that these kinds of podcasts and writing blogs and videos, putting more videos out there is the way for us to, educate rest of the folks and share our knowledge, right? And even if it can help like few people somewhere, I think this will be a great outcome.
I always love turning things inside out, right? So I imagine, the disenfranchised, broke, struggling to get access to education, furry, red-bearded weirdo who lives in Ireland. And he looks up to the hyper-successful, director at Google in engineering and just wants to grow up big and strong like Lakshmi. And he's off trying to figure out, like, I got to build some good, I got to work this networking thing out. So like, everybody does want to grow up big and strong, like little Lakshmi. And I really appreciate you taking all this time and putting up with my weirdness. Anything I can ever do to help, don't ever hesitate to reach out. And thanks for taking time to talk to our people.
Same for you. I still remember, right? And this is kind of, it could be on the record too, but so and I think it was your last week, I guess, or second last week, and we were at Next, and then my daughter needed an extra pass, and you gave her and took her, because you were the one running the show. So at that time, so that things like that, right? They matter and they stay with people for the rest of the life. So thank you for being such a wonderful person.
Oh yeah, no, that's what we're here to do.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @CloudandClear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.